first and foremost, I want to say a massive welcome. So this is a special sort of podcast / screen recording that we are hosting at LVS Ascot. For anyone who doesn't know who I am, my name is Richard Fraser, and currently I'm the Round Square coordinator at LVS Ascot. And the purpose of this evening's discussion and podcast is to try and have a bit of an examination and a discussion around Round Square conferences, but really from a parent's perspectives. So hopefully you won't be hearing me doing too much talking, but rather handing over to the parents to talk about their experiences of Round Square, of the conference itself, and what their children took away from the conferences that they attended. So what we're going to do to start off with is we're just going to quickly shoot around the group in order for the parents to be able to introduce themselves, to tell you who their children are and which conference they attended. So Mr. Oboite, let's start with you, please.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Adinba Oboite, and my daughter, Igogo Oboite, attended the conference in Colombia.
Lovely. And Mrs. Smith, you next, please.
My name is Becky Smith, and my son Tom Smith also went to Colombia, which I think was the first adventure into Round Square school conferencing.
Lovely. And we have Mr. Fielding here as well. So I'll just hand over to you, Mr. Fielding.
Hi, I'm Leighton Fielding's father, and my son also went to the first Round Square school trip to Colombia.
Perfect. Right, so Mrs. Eccles, you next, please.
Hello, good evening, Jermaine Eccles. I am Harry Eccles' mum, year 10, and he's just returned from the Rwanda trip.
Lovely. And we've got both John's mum and dad here as well, so I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening. My name is Jesus Duran, and my wife Hazel. We are parents of Jan Duran, who attended the conference in Rwanda.
Lovely. And last but not least.
Hi, my name's Neil Thatcher. I'm Chloe Beth's stepfather, and she attended the Round Square trip to Rwanda.
Yeah, fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, that's the parents that we've got here. Very grateful for you all to join us and have an opportunity to talk about this. But yeah, essentially, it was students in year 12, for anyone listening, who went at the beginning of the academic year over to Colombia, and then students in year 10 and 11 who went to, we went to Kenya as part of the trip, but the Round Square conference part happened in Rwanda, and that was, only a month ago or so, probably a little bit more since we returned. But I'm just interested, I'm going to open this to the floor. Would any of the parents just kind of talk a little bit about their sort of preconceptions? You know, there must have been quite a lot of thoughts. Perhaps how did you first hear about the opportunity for your child to go on a conference, and what were your first feelings about it? And can we start there?
Yeah, I mean, I can dive in. Happy to take that one. As with all sort of school activities, it's Harry often comes home sort of full of the excitement of the opportunities that are afforded him at LVS. So he came home and told me about this experience that he wanted to participate in. And then obviously, Mr. Fraser, you had also sent a communication out talking about what the trip would entail. I mean, for us, and I think for Harry, really, we were both sort of looking for a culturally rich experience for him. We certainly were getting from the communication and from the information that you'd sent to the children about the possibilities on this trip around, seeing differences between, his educational setting and cultures and others around the globe. And actually, it also looked like an incredibly fun experience, actually, and some fantastic activities, not just attending the conference. So yeah, that was sort of our expectations of the conference and of the trip.
Lovely. Mr. Boite?
Yes, so similar. So we never heard of Round Square conference, so haven't been in the school for about 3 or 4 years. We never knew of the Round Square conference. And so Gogo came home and said she would like to attend. And it was months in advance of the date, so that was okay. So it was like, gave the consent, right? And but as the date approached, there was a bit of apprehension. And I remember I attended the briefing that we had in school with yourself, Mr. Fraser, and one other teacher. And then that's when it dawned on us that, oh, Igogo is going to go away, so far away from home, going to stay in homeschool, in homestay, and in Colombia. We all know what comes to mind when we say Colombia. So there was a bit of apprehension. But one thing that gave us the comfort, that's Igogo's mom and myself, was the fact that, okay, so we know you, Mr. Fraser. Our other son, Ihonre, he's been on DOE, where, for those who may not know, that's been organized by Mr. Fraser. And so that gave us a lot of comfort that at least that our daughter would be in good hands. But there was that initial apprehension. But the other thing that helped us was constant communication. So Igogo was able to communicate with us regularly on a daily basis on how things were going, and that just put our minds at rest. And the experience overall was very good because she came back with telling us about the networking, meeting students from all over the world. She spoke about the days when they had the different performances, where each school had to showcase their performances and all. She thoroughly enjoyed it. And she also had good things to say about the homestay parents that she stayed with, the family she stayed with, how kind they were, how accommodating they were. And so overall, it was a very, very good experience, and we're happy that she was able to attend this conference.
Yeah, that's lovely. Absolutely. I'm also lucky enough to have been Ihonre's maths teacher for the last few years, so definitely know him very well in that regard as well. That's one of the perks of my job, I have to say. But yeah, interestingly, that's homestay is something that for the parents who came to East Africa, something that we didn't have to worry about. And I'm able to be kind of open and honest in these situations and say that was actually a part of the Colombia trip that caused me a little bit of worry as well. I had to, it was part of our risk assessment. But what I kept thinking to myself was that Round Square is a huge network of schools. There's 270 schools. They've got a huge reputation, and they've been doing these conferences for many, many years. And so, they're all obviously quite careful about how they make their decisions. And Mr. Boyd, you're absolutely right. After we came back, one of the things the students spoke about the highest about that experience was the homestay experience. And I think especially the girls, Evie and Igogo, had a particularly lovely view over the city. I got some photos of that, which was fantastic. But they got to see Colombia or Bogota through the eyes of a local family. Yeah.
Can I just say what my expectation was similar, because I don't know Colombia, I actually don't know South America particularly. So that was a new experience. And the first thing that I did when Tom came home very excited about the opportunity was definitely think, wow, what an opportunity. This is something that we'd really like to explore. This doesn't come along every day of the week. Other things are more easy to access into. Perhaps going skiing, as life progresses, there are greater accessibility to other things. But this, I felt, was not actually that accessible to have some of the experiences. And so the first thing I did actually was have a little, I hate to say it, Google around Round Square School to learn a little bit more about them as an organisation and understand their values. And I can endorse more what you've just said, Mr. Fraser. They're very experienced at what they do, and they've got some very clear values and goals, what they want to achieve with young people. And I think if as a parent you look at that, if you're trying to decide whether this would be right for your young person, you will be able to align against it if it is right.
Absolutely.
Because and they really uphold those values and goals in the experience that the young people then undertake. So that was my first, when Tom came home eagerly talking about Colombia, was, oh yeah, that does sound exciting, and oh yeah, that does sound something that I might not be able to do for him. and as a family, and something he might not have opportunities around through progression. I don't know, but possibly. So gosh, that could be something. So really wanted to explore it, and I have to say that the information session we had with you was super helpful. And I was also concerned about the homestay, but as it turns out, I think it's one of Tom's best experiences ever. Absolutely, and he's still in contact with the young
I mean,
people.
those of you who were parents of students who went to Colombia, I mean, obviously you had all of that and sort of pre sort of conceptions about what the country's like, and we were going to Kenya, which also has particular kind of preconceptions, but interestingly enough, it was actually a couple of days after there was that conflict. So I don't know if you might not have noticed, but parents of students going to Rwanda and Kenya were very much watching the news. And I mean, definitely, I don't know, perhaps, slightly concerned about that.
Yeah, if that's one of the things I was going to say, it's interesting. Take something like this as a perspective as a parent. I was lucky in my 20s to have an opportunity to travel, so there was that initial level of excitement, then the realization, it's my 14 at the time year old daughter going traveling, not me in my 20s. And then there were some concerns in and around the Rwanda area coming up to trip, but the amount of effort that went into keep us updated. This is what they're looking at, consulted with the government, consulted with their team over there, and like almost day by day, because we were going to Kenya first, going, look, we're keeping reviewing it. If for any reason we don't go, we don't go. And it really instilled that confidence, because that you can get caught up in that excitement initially with your kids, but then you'll kind of, parent bit of the brain kicks in, and you worry. And I must admit, I in a way I worried about her less on this trip because it's so well informed than disappearing off on a sports tour or stuff like that, because there was that constant communication. And I know you get it a little bit from the kids on their mobiles and stuff, but that isn't always the feedback you want. So I found that very reassuring, kind of, especially leading up to the trip, but through the trip, that you kind of knew everything was okay. And I wanted them to have that experience, and I think that was good that they didn't have their phones 24/7. They were enjoying the experience, but you as a parent still knew everything was all right where they were and what they were doing, so that let you relax and just enjoy the photos and things as they came through.
Yeah, that's lovely. Well, in both cases, I mean, I think that trying to keep you as informed as possible was a goal of myself and both of the Miss Chihuahua and Miss Ward as well, to try and keep that sort of information coming, and so I'm pleased that was useful. But what was lovely is I didn't actually have to motivate the students that much to get off their phones. They did that themselves, and it was wonderful for me to see this. I mean, in all 11 of the students that came, I mean, I couldn't have been prouder. And I know I've said this to you as well at different times, but the students conducted themselves so well. I mean, they were such a credit to us as a school and such a credit to you as parents. And yeah, it took very little sort of coercion and monitoring in terms of that. So it was something that they took on themselves as well, which is lovely to see as well.
Yeah, it speaks massively to the experience they were having, because you know when your children are away doing something they're not so engaged with because they're constantly on their phone, whereas it just wasn't a thing on this, which speaks volumes to the experience they were having.
Agreed. Mr. Boyti.
Yes, so I was just going to talk, you mentioned about the risk assessments that were done for Colombia, and just to let prospective parents know that security is definitely a big part of the whole round square conference planning, starting from yourself, Mr. Fraser, and LVS Ascot conducting risk assessments. So obviously there are certain countries that the conference will be held in where safety will be like a big concern. But just to say that your team, you do a great job. and also the Round Square Conference organizers as well, because one of the feedback that we got from Igogo when she got back was how secure they felt in Colombia. So we are originally from Nigeria, West Africa. So we're used to seeing armed escorts. It's normal, that part of the world. And she told us that in Colombia, same thing, that everywhere where the team went, they were escorted by armed police to guarantee their protection. So that's something that I think is big. I know the next Round Square conference is in Dubai. That's more of a holiday destination as opposed to Colombia. So, but if you're going to go to any other remote place again, it's good to promote that aspect about the security, the plans, and let them know, reassure parents.
Well,
so
we actually, that's a lovely point. And in terms of the Rwanda trip, I don't think I told any of the parents this, but initially when we were going to, because one of the days we spent where we visited a national park, and initially the plan was to head northwesterly to a national park over there. But when that incident happened with the DRC, we actually ended up going the other way. So we went and didn't go to the national park that was originally planned. And that's because those dynamic risk assessments are always happening, and obviously the student safety is first and foremost.
Yeah,
brilliant.
So that's really good.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, gosh, so much there. Can we talk a little bit about sort of the impact to your children? I mean, it's when I got in the car on the last day in Rwanda, so for a little bit of context to this. Because of the times of the flights, we decided to leave the conference, the closing ceremony of the conference in Rwanda, a little bit earlier. So when we left, the party was still going, and it was only about half an hour, and we went to the airport. And that was because if we didn't catch that flight, we would have had to wait till the next evening. And so I was standing there and I was watching our 6 students, our year 10s and 11s, who'd made these friends, over the course of 4 days, saying goodbye, big hugs, and, lots of, sort of sad faces. And we got in the car, in the taxi, onto the airport. And one of the students behind me went, "That's the best thing I've ever done in my whole life." And I mean, I'm not sure if it really was, but it's incredible to hear that. And, I'd like to hand over to the Duran Castros, please, to maybe put some meat on those bones.
Thank you. No, you're absolutely right. When Jane came back from the trip, one of the first things that he mentioned, that was the best trip that he ever had with LBS, without doubt, because it was a unique and enriching experience in many ways. The interaction, the connection, the socialization they had with different students of different parts of the world, learning from other cultures, and have the opportunity to speak and present in front of many, 200, 400, I'm not sure about the number of attendees in the conference, exchanging different thoughts, and something very important that he felt, this independence and be on his own with a number of friends, and making friends from everywhere and keep contact with them. That's extremely valuable. And also the learning that they had from the country per se, right? Rwanda also brought a good experience in the visiting this memorial of the genocide that's maybe outside of the conference, but they learn also from what the history and the culture of the country that they are visiting, which is pretty good as well.
And I also would like to mention that he was so excited about the safari and to get the animals, to see the animals. But at the end, the most rewarding experience was the service project. To help to shape the school. And he was saying that he was so tired, not for the job that they did at the school, but for holding the kids and hugging the kids, because the kids were around them and they want to hug them and they want to be carried by them, and that was lovely. It's an unbelievable experience. And yeah, I think they connect with nature, they connect between each other, and that's the most rewarding experience, no? Because I mean, you can travel and all the world, but this experience is one of a kind, no?
Yeah. So while we were in Kenya, we were hosted by a school called Brook House, and a gentleman called Willie, the legend himself, is the Brown Square coordinator at Brook House, and they hosted us in their boarding facilities. We were just so well looked after. But we spent one day in Kibra. Kibra is I think it's the biggest slum in the world. And there was a school there called the Moshimo Squatters Primary School. And we spent just a day there. And it's an interesting one because, and a conversation I've had with quite a few people since, is that what we do as a group is we go in there and we fix some windows and we painted some walls. And if you think about it, that's a nice thing to do, but it's probably not going to be a long-lasting thing. You know, it may be in 2 months' time the windows are broken and the walls have been ripped down, and that would be a sad thing, but probably quite a likelihood. You know, there's a strong reality that would happen. But what really changes is what happens in our students' hearts and in their minds. And that was really incredible to watch. And we did. And so if anyone's watching this and wants to know a little bit more about the things, if you go onto the LVS co-curricular Instagram, there's photos, and we basically documented the entire process. And one of the videos we did, we passed the phone around and we asked the question, what are you most looking forward to? And just as Hazel has just said over there, many of the students talked about the elephants and various bits and pieces. Only 2 students mentioned that the service day was the thing they were looking forward to the most. But when we came to that and we were in the airport and we had a conversation about it, without a doubt, every single one of them said the service day was the highlight for them. Just being able to give back and make a difference, and probably maybe only a little difference in that school, but a massive difference for our students, and hopefully something that's going to be sort of directive in how they go about their future lives. And that's a wonderful thing to be able to, praise, I suppose. Justin, you had your hand up a few minutes ago. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, yeah, I think again the service day, Leighton thoroughly enjoyed, and for us, it really developed Leighton's self-confidence. He's never shy. He plays sport for the school and he gets out there. But the fact that they were all split up whilst being out there together, and they saw each other each day when they're out on tasks and their work, they were with different children, but because of the ethos of the Round Square School, they're all similarly or like-minded children, so they all just naturally got on, is the impression that I got. And the confidence and self-confidence that Leighton got from that, before he went on that trip, there's no way on this earth that he would have applied and put himself into to bid him for the head boy position. And he did that, and he came back, because of the confidence he got from that. He applied for that process. He stood up and spoke in front of all the Year 6 children. That would have filled him with fear 2 years ago.
All the Year 6 children. He stood up and spoke in front of the entire school.
Right.
Yeah. So there was probably about 600 students he stood up and spoke in front of. It was incredible. It was really, and he did so well.
And and that would have filled him with dread 18 months ago. And I think part of it is down to the Round Square School opportunity he had. He still keeps in touch with some of the people that he met out there, not necessarily his host family, but there are other people that he's kept in touch with. And he was so eager. When Dubai first came out, he was really disappointed that it wasn't going to be open and an option to him. And he's just been waiting and waiting. And I mean, he's absolutely over the moon this week that he's got a place on the Dubai trip, because he knows how much he got from it.
I think from Harry's perspective, I think the experience really, in all aspects of the trip. And I echo what everyone else is saying there. It really helped him see beyond his own immediate surroundings. I think a lot of children these days, yes, I think one of the parents was alluding to the fact that you go and get cultural experiences on holiday, but this is so different in the sense that he was fully immersed in in the activities, experiencing different cultures and other children at the conference. The participating in the service project was an absolute highlight for Harry. And the contacts that he's made, and he's doubled his number of contacts in his Snapchat map, he said to me the other day. So hopefully making sort of lasting friendships there. And I think my son's quite a confident person, but I feel like this has sort of taken it to a next level for him. Very, very proud of him, and very proud of what they all achieved. And those photographs at the service project were quite heart-wrenching, really. As a parent, I was incredibly proud of how he sort of lent right into the process, and they all worked together, from a teamwork and collaboration perspective. It was great to see.
Lovely. Mr. Boyti, shall we quickly go to you and then to Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah, I know the time is fast spent, but I just thought to mention this in terms of impact. So Igogo had been to other trips, school trips, Barcelona and other trips, but this particular one had a significant impact in terms of the fact that it was outside of her comfort zone, and also outside of our comfort zone as her parents. But it's good to see that she was able to make the best of it. Lots of activities that were completely outside of her comfort zone. And she came back, more rounded, with more experience. And similarly, she put in for head of house, and she got head of house. So she's head of her house now. And so that's really giving her the impetus to pull herself forward and take risks, and test her abilities.
Yeah.
And then I know we're going to round up soon, but Mr. Fraser, you've done a fantastic job. I believe this is your initiative, the Round Square Conference. Just to mention this, that you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
DOE as well. I know you are very much involved in DOE as well, Duke of Edinburgh. These adventure things. These are things that when we joined LVS Ascot, nobody told us that we were going to benefit from this kind of things. So it's good to see them getting this well-rounded education academically, and also stretching themselves outside of their comfort zone. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well
But listen, I'll hand that credit to my wonderful principal, and this is kind of who actually is responsible for introducing Round Square to LVS. She went on a school trip to a school in South Africa, and she was sitting in the school, and she looked around, and there's some Round Square stuff up on the wall, and she thought to herself, we need to have this. So she came back here, and she investigated how to make that happen. And all she asked me to do in my my performance management review last year was to drive it. She used those words. She said, "Drive Round Square," and so I've tried to do that. And I'm pleased to say that students have had the opportunities they have. But it's more than just the conferences. There's a lot of it. We've currently, just while I have it, got 3 students on international exchanges. One young lady is in Cape Town. One young lady is, Anna Sophia, whose brother is Jean, who came to Rwanda. But Anna Sophia is in Australia, having a wonderful time. And we have a young lady who's in California. So we've got the conferences, we've got the exchanges, we've got the things that we do in school. So, Round Square is based on 6 ideals: internationalism, democracy, environmentalism, adventure, leadership, and service. And so it's our jobs as teachers and a school community to provide opportunities for the students to thrive in all of those areas. And that's why there's so much crossover with Duke of Edinburgh. In fact, just quickly, Kurt Hahn, a lot of the Round Square ideals are based on his philosophy. His quote that we see on Round Square conferences all the time is that if you give the opportunity to a young person to see like fully achieve their potential, they'll never settle for anything else. And that's what it's about. It's about giving opportunities for students to thrive and expecting that once they've seen what they're capable of, that they're never going to settle for any less.
Yeah.
And if we can do that for our students, I mean, there couldn't be any greater cause, in my opinion.
Yes.
Mr. Duran Castro,
Hi.
or Mrs.
I
Duran
just,
Castro.
I just would like to mention that another really important part of the trip was the memorial, which Jan was so moved about it. He told me he almost cried because we have him saw the film before go to the trip, so he was so conscious about the genocide, and he was so moved that, and that's something really important for them to experience, no, to be conscious about things that happen to to some people, and I mean, I think this is good for the humanity, no, in general, to get conscious about not to hurt ourselves, no, in yeah,
Yeah.
and it was so rewarding to him.
Well, exactly. I mean, I was lucky enough to be standing at the back next to the exit. And so when we went to the Genocide Memorial, the first thing that we did was they played a video for us. So they got us all into this room and they played a video of sort of testimonies from survivors. Oh my goodness. I was glad that I was next to the door because, you know, there were a few parts where I just had to kind of just, compose myself. It was so horrendously, well, it was horrendous, but it was incredibly moving. And I can't believe that was in 1994, the Rwandan genocide took place. I mean, that's the most crazy thing in my opinion. You know, it's I was 10 years old. I lived in Botswana. I vaguely remember it happening. But for us to sit there as the 6 students and learn that this horrendous thing happened where nearly 1 million Tutsis basically got wiped out and most of the world just stood back and watched. I mean, you know, we have to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
We can't be in a position where those things are able to happen again. And your children are the leaders of the future. Mr. Thatcher.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to a bit to kind of when Chloe got home and kind of like the kind of feedback from the trip. And I think there are a few things that really stood out for me. One was how moved she was, and also kind of I think it really. I've tried really. It's very hard when you want to give your child all the opportunities that they can have to teach them how lucky they are and things like that. So much is taken for granted, and since she's come back from that, I think that is something that's really stuck. It's unavoidable to see it when they're in these projects, and I'm glad that kind of stuck. The second thing that really stood up to me, pretty much every trip she's been on, you talked about ski trips earlier, also like the sports tours and stuff, when they come back from those things, they've obviously had a good time, but it's like, oh, never guess what so and so did, and this happened and that happened, and it's very much just a conversation around the politics of the students, and it could have been anywhere, whereas everything about this trip was, as you say, before it was about the animals and stuff. When they came back, it was about the social project and that. But also, we could, we're a private school. We could do so much more to help. They don't even have a playground, but they've got all these tires. We could do this, but I was told they couldn't do that because they don't have the first aid if somebody get injured. So they need to have a first aider, and really kind of thinking about how more help could be provided, and so that was, it's changed her perspective and her values and the way she thinks about it, more so than, a lot of other trips. And as I think a couple of people have said, I went traveling, but you only get to see the kind of tourist arranged trips and stuff. For a student, even if they get to travel all the way around the world later in life, they're not going to have these kind of experiences of meeting other children their own age in the kind of this real world environment. You see a kind of sterilized tourist environment, and that will stick with them. It's affected to listen to it as parents, you know, as you were talking about that, I'd never even heard of the Rwanda genocide, you know, and that kind of shocked me that something like that had happened in my lifetime, and I hadn't even heard of it. And it kind of, so it rubs off on you, and I just think of any trip I've seen her go on, there's just so much value in this, and if there's one thing parents listening to this can take away when trying to decide, you know, you were saying, you know, the challenge between a trip like the ski trip and this trip on take up, this kind of experience is far more valuable for their education. You know, I love skiing. I'm never going to go don't go skiing. I still go now, but you'll be able to go on a ski trip for your whole life whenever you want. If you know, most of you, this you only get, there's probably one chance, you know.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you. I also love skiing. I want to let all of the LVS ski trip organizers know that I fully support that. But no, I absolutely agree with you. Listen, I want to thank you all. I've loved this conversation. You know, these are conversations that, you know, I have with myself. I'm not going completely crazy, but also with my wife at home. But it's such a lovely opportunity to talk to you guys about it and hear your perspectives more formally, because I know we've spoken in many instances individually around the school, but I've loved this conversation. But I do appreciate time is ticking, so we're going to finish off just by saying, if you were to pass on a message to any other parents or any students about Round Square conferences, what would your message be?
Go for it.
This is a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
Don't miss it.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
It
might be. Sorry, go on.
No, not at all. I was just going to say it will enable them to do things that you might not realise, that it will take, not all, I'm sure, but many young people will find themselves walking outside of their comfort zone, and that can only be good particularly when you're young, and they might just do stuff that you don't realise that they're going to really engage with and really enjoy and kind of get their hands round. And you know, and I've been fascinated to hear about the Rwanda experience, and I kind of would like to hear about the next experience, even if my child's not on it, because it's significant in its impact to, as I think someone else said, not just the young person, but also the wider family. I've never heard my son talk to my father-in-law in the way that he did when he came back from Colombia. I was surprised he didn't whip his laptop out and have a presentation on there to go through. You know, he's engaged. He was so engaged, and you know, and he was saying stuff that he hadn't told us yet. There was other droplets that sort of come out over time because there was so many interesting things and experiences, and it was very enriching. And I would encourage anyone to, even if you're a little bit nervous, trust in the school, trust in Round Square, because you have every reason to, and they will be fine, absolutely fine, and they will come back broader than they went.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And I'd absolutely echo everything that everybody said. You know, take the opportunity, grasp it. If it's this, a sports tour or skiing, it would be Round Square every day of the week, I think.
Agreed. I think, you know, it's a real opportunity for your children to experience something incredibly unique, and something that they will treasure and learn from, and will always, you know, it will always be a topic for discussion, and, you know, an opportunity for them to share experiences and learnings. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad I sent him, and I think he's so glad he went.
So
Wonderful. Brilliant. Okay, well, with that, we're going to wrap this podcast up, or by video recording chat. But a massive thank you to all of you again. On the horizon, we've got 6 students coming after Easter for exchanges, and a number of students going to various places around the world. Dubai is now fully booked, but we have applied for a few extra places, so perhaps you may have missed the opportunity for that, but we are looking at future conferences. Currently, we've booked one shortly afterwards for some of the younger students to go to Miami, but I actually think I'm going to change that. I think that, they're culturally too similar. We've done Colombia, we've done Rwanda. Let's find somewhere equally testing. So please, if you are a parent of a current student, keep your eye out and encourage your children to be involved. But from us at LVS, big thank you once again to the parents involved. And I want to highlight, I've said this already in this conversation, but you should all be so proud of your children. They are credit to you and to us at LVS.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say goodbye now.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so all the best.